They actually did it. With today's recent Into the Light stream part 2, they dived into the weapons and what is coming back, and a lot of these fan favorites that were sunset because they were too powerful have been retuned and are now coming back for free. We're going to talk about the 12 of them. We're going to highlight a few of the ones that stood out to me. And we're going to also address probably the two things that I think are the most beneficial changes and improvements that they're adding to the game for moving forward, going into final shape and beyond. The first thing that they talked about was, of course, the new social space. Even though it's not a new social space, it's still a new social space in the sense that it's a new location for us to go called the Hall of Champions. This is kind of the hub world of where all of the new Into the Light activity, rewards, currencies will be spent and purchased. What is cool is that you come here, you go do onslaught, come back here, and then you purchase, or I guess deposit your currencies, and you get gear from this activity and also gear from onslaught. The interesting thing that it also talked about was Brave and Brave's armor, which is a homage basically to the year one armor sets from the Homecoming. If you weren't around, these were the armor sets kinda where when we first started playing Destiny 2 and we did the Red War campaign, these were the armor sets that we had. These were the armor sets that were torn and tattered and all that stuff. So that's come back, been re-envisioned, and I gotta say, for the most part, they look all really good. Of course, they didn't go into too much detail in regarding, all of the shading and stuff, but they did talk about Black Shader, Super Black. This is a shader that a lot of people for years have been trying to mimic, and it's finally back. This is all going to be helmed by Lord Shax, and Shax is going to be kind of at the forefront of this activity. Best way to think about it is Zur with his Days of Eternity and with his Eternity location. This is for Zur. This is going to be what Shax is for this activity. You're going to be able to get these currencies, tokens of bravery from playing Onslaught, but also from playing other activities in D2, which is also really cool. So no matter what you're doing, you should be able to earn these currencies, which I think is a dub in my book. Accompanying Shax is the robot known as Arsight. I believe I spoke that correctly. Arsight has 5 bounties and 4 quests, for which the quests are going to be giving you weapons. Once you do the quests, which has you do some things in the game, will earn you the ability for having that weapon drop. Once you do that, you'll get a limited edition of the weapon. Also, completing them will unlock a base version of said weapon as well. You're going to get these brave weapons from Onslaught, also having a low chance for a special version with a limited edition variant, which holds an ornament, which is actually really, really sick. Unfortunately, I guess you have to be able to play before Final Shape to earn these because they will not be available once Final Shape releases. Mentioning a lot of the weapons, let's just go ahead and go through them. First up, we have Edge Transit, which is a very, very infamous grenade launcher going back from Forsaken. The developers also talked about how Edge Transit apparently hits like a truck, so it should be interesting to see. How this plays once we get our hands on it. The original spinny to Winnie sword is back, following Guillotine with updated perk combinations like repulsor brace and destabilizing rounds. Blast Furnace, the pulse rifle from the Black Army, has returned. This is one of the ones that I'm not too sure about, even though this is a fan favorite. Pulse rifles are not in the best state for PvE, especially aggressive frames, but my favorite pulse rifle frame is aggressive, so it should be interesting how it comes back and if it actually is pretty solid. For some reason, Hungery is back for the 12th time. I don't know what Hungery, has against Bungie developers for it to keep coming back over and over, especially in a time like this where we are highlighting a lot of the fan favorite weapons. If you're using Hungery more than I am, please tell me, but this is definitely the one that stands out the most as just an odd choice to bring back. A couple of interesting ones that at first I wasn't a fan of them returning, but now that I've sat on it all day, I've kind of come around to it. First being Succession from the Deep Stone Crypt raid, and second being Forbearance from Vow of the Disciple. These are easily two raid weapons that most people want the most from those raids, and just really any raids. So I do think this is a pretty good opportunity for those people, those players that don't raid. This is definitely targeted to people who do not raid, to give them, a bit of a taste of what a raid weapon could be, even though they won't be able to have like a really good role of it that has like the origin trait like Soul Drinker or Braid Tech Inheritance. So backed up by what they said in the developer show, talking about how they're trying to get more people to raid, and if the players are able to just get a few weapons that are sought after to check out and use, and then say, oh, I really want some more raid weapons, I'm more incentivized to go raid. That's pretty dope. Always down for more people wanting to raid and getting into raiding and having reasons to raid. So this is a dub in my book. The already confirmed Midnight Coup has been even more confirmed. We're having that from the original Leviathan raid. Easily the most sought after weapon from that raid has returned with some pretty cool perks. So I'm really happy to see that this 140, used to be 150 RPM hand cannon, is back. Even though hand cannons are a bit different now than they were back then, it'll be interesting seeing how this stands up to current sandboxes. We also have Hammerhead coming back as well, which is going to be really, really cool because it also is going to be rolling with Rampage and Killing Tally. A lot of the weapons from the old school Black Armory days would roll with double damage perks or double something perks. So seeing this come back was going to be really, really, really cool, especially in an era where we don't have that. It has some really high potential, but also is going to be competing with Commemoration and Corrective Measure in a lot of people's slots. Some people thought that Hammerhead was going to come out with a different, not being void, but a lot of these are very void centric, so it should be interesting to see what happens when Hammerhead comes back. Stranger's Rifle has returned, now known as Elsie's Rifle, another weapon from Destiny 1. The very first legendary weapon you get when you complete the original campaign has returned, and this is the one that stood out to me the most because some people say, well, this is, No Time to Tell or like whatever that pulse rifle is. And I actually like this coming back, especially if they're trying to bring back a lot of highlights from certain eras of Destiny's lifetime. Bringing back Stranger Rifle and making it, up to par, up to date, and now calling it Elsie's Rifle. It's pretty cool. We'll see what the perks look like on it, but, another dub in my book. A couple of other weapons that are coming back are Luna's Howl, which is a old school PvP weapon back from the days of Forsaken. This is easily one of the best hand cannons, at least back then it was, with his older brother that kind of got not forgotten. But we are getting Luna's Howl back as a precision 140 with Magnificent Howl, kind of retuned, kind of like Hawk Moon, where you reload and the certain amount of precision weapon hits you get will then load in a bunch of the magazine equally for bigger damage bonuses. Some people were kind of upset that we didn't get Not Forgotten, but at least we got one of them. Maybe they should have brought back Not Forgotten instead, but I think the one that stands out the most for a lot of people is definitely Luna's Howl, and I think Luna's Howl was the right choice to bring back. The big two easily that were announced that stood out to a lot of people has to be the Recluse and Mountaintop. Two other PvP pursuit weapons from back in the day from Forsaken are returning, and they're both coming with their special perks. Recluse coming back with Master of Arms. Apparently it used to be like 50%, I can't remember, but it is getting nerfed down to not being 50%. My guess is going to be like 20%, and it still has that timer and everything. So it is nice to see Master of Arms getting retooled and brought into the current sandbox. It also still rolls with Feeding Frenzy, so you can get your traditional old school Feeding Frenzy Master of Arms roll, but we'll see. It has to compete with Funnel Web and a lot of other stuff in that special slot, so it'll be interesting to see how that works out. And of course the big one being Mountaintop. Mountaintop is got a new archetype, which is Micro Missile, which back then was a perk. Now it has Micro Missile as its intrinsic perk, or I guess intrinsic archetype. Micro Missile allows it to, as it always should have, fire a grenade in a straight line. By the time it was sunset entirely, it no longer shot in a straight line, and you had to do all this stuff to make it work. Now, even when you're jumping, even when you're on the ground, you shoot and it goes in a direct line and blows up. That's probably the thing that surprised me the most, is that they're bringing it back in that state. And even then, they allow you to rocket jump with it, basically, where you shoot it at the ground and it shoots you up in the air. So I'm already thinking of spaces where I'm going to try to mix in, a shatter skate or a well skate from like Slammer or Falling Guillotine, and mix it into a mountaintop rocket jump for even more speed. I cannot wait to see all of the movement tech you can have with that, and then tie into that the new skimmer movement tech you can have as well. This is a good time for speedrunners. All in all, I have to give them a W for this reveal. If I didn't want to give them a W, the added effect of the Hall of Champions having a attunement aspect takes them over the top. What attunement's going to do is allow you to go, once you have done enough of the content, go to one of these vendors, and then you're going to activate an attunement. And what that's going to do is that's going to increase the drop chances of that weapon and that weapon only when you play Onslaught and other activities. Basically, they're starting to add in what people have asked for such a long time: target farming. Target farming is something that this game has needed for a long time, where if I want to get X weapon, let me just go do this content, get X weapon constantly until I get the role that I want. And I hope that this is something that they're looking for taking forward in Final Shape. I'd be very upset if Final Shape doesn't come with target farming more widely spread. But I will say, if this is stuff that they're adding in the game, then this game has some very high potential for long-term investment and long-term grind, and also these things not being craftable and allowing players to have more targetable farming, where I'm not just sitting in the enclave for 18 hours or just looking for red borders to delete, is a W in my book as far as player investment. All this so far that they've shown for Into the Light has been phenomenal, in my opinion. Stuff that I didn't expect, especially for this to all be free. And they do say that there is going to be some pretty special things and exciting things next week in the finale of this Into the Light dev streams. And they talked about some new crafting things, and they talked about exciting missions. And a lot of people think Whisper and 0 Hour are on that list, including Harbinger, but more importantly, 0 Hour and Whisper. So it should be interesting to see what happens with those two things. So far, Into Light streams have been a dub. Can't wait for next week. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.